This is Get Real with Bob and Stacy, the show that helps you learn about the mortgage and real estate markets. Get the inside scoop from their expert list of guests and have some fun along the way. Now, here's Bob Gallagher and Stacy Alcorn.
Welcome back. You're listening to Get Real with Bob and Stacy. Our first guest joining us today is Guy Hatcher, certified financial planner and author of Your Future Reflection. Welcome to the show, Guy.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So let me give everyone some background on Guy. As you mentioned, he's the author of Your Future Reflection. Guy believes the true definition of legacy is demonstrated through the life you live as you use the gifts you are given, input actionable steps into completing your God-given life purpose and call. In his book, he gives a roadmap to help you build the life and legacy you desire. Guy is personally committed to creating a lasting legacy that will impact every person God places in his sphere of influence. He is passionate about his family as a dedicated dad to his 2 kids and a loving husband to his wife, Tamara. So explain to us, what is legacy planning and how is it different from, say, estate planning that most people understand?
I think, Stacey, that's a great question. First of all, I've been doing estate planning for about 30 years. So the way I would break it down is twofold, is that there are 2 pivotal moments as I've worked with numerous families that I kept seeing the same pattern. Let's say we take a mom or a dad, they're in their latter days, maybe they've got a terminal disease and they know they're fixing to pass away, and I'd go in and I'd sit down with them and they would always say, "Guy, do I have everything in place?" So I work with attorneys, I work with CPAs, so we'd have all the legal documents put in place, whether it be a trust or a will, a power of attorney, whatever. And, of course, we'd look at the financial assets because I would be doing financial management for them also. But I could always tell there was something more, and I couldn't ever quite quantify it. And then let's say that individual passes away. The next pivotal moment would be anywhere from 30 to 60 days later. I'm sitting down with the kids. And we've got the legal documents in front of us, and we've got a list of the assets, and we're trying to work out the distribution and the settlement of the estate. And it always seems like at that point in time that, you know, son and daughter, brother and sister, they would start fighting over a bag of cash or over an heirloom. And here's what I've realized about 5 years ago, that when you really want to leave a true legacy, the financial assets are a component of it. But there's other things that I started realizing that actually make up that play, because what brother and sister were fighting over was really the lack of the affirmation or the lack of the blessing that mom or dad did not give them, or they felt like they did not receive. And the only way they could ever go in and quantify and feel they measured up was to get that last asset from mom or dad. And so what we've tried to do, you know, in all our coaching now and our legacy planning that we do with individuals, is help families really go in and decide, okay, what does legacy really mean? And one of that is really talking about doing letters of affirmation to the kids, how to bless the kids, how to encourage the kids. You know, still they're going to receive the financial assets. So we do that through, you know, dealing with making sure we cast a strong vision, helping them understand what values as parents that we want to pass on into future generations, what relationships we want to still maintain and have honored after we've passed away. And then, of course, we get to the stuff. How do we want the stuff to be managed?
All right, this is all awesome stuff, and I totally get it, but I wonder if you ever have pushback. Like, I know with my own parents who, like, purchase cemetery spots, I'm like, "Ma, come on. Do you really need to?" Like, I'm like, it's depressing. Why do you need to go buy cemetery slots? It's like somebody else can worry about it after you're dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, why worry? Are there a lot of people that push back and they just don't want to deal with even thinking about death?
Stacey, yeah, there are a handful, but I'm going to tell you, out of my 30 years and probably 10,000 tables I've sat down with and worked with numerous families, it's probably maybe 2 to 3%.
Wow.
Most parents, as you move into that older age, you get in your thinking stage. Okay, I got X amount of time left. How do I really want to leave this? And most parents, I will tell you, they don't want to leave their kids into a mess. Now, you're responding as a natural child. A natural child does not want to think of their parents moving into that stage. So one thing I really do, I do a lot of coaching to the kids. Look, this is a natural progression of life.
Mm-hmm.
So be part of that planning with mom and dad. Tell me, what are you looking for when you're looking at that mom and dad? In other words, take it out of, I don't want to ever see mom and dad going in that stage, versus help them participate in that journey.
Right. So with legacy planning as opposed to estate planning, do you need a certain level of wealth or to be at a specific age when you begin legacy planning?
No, I don't believe so. What's been interesting, I've been doing a lot of blogging, a lot of writing in the last 3 years as we were putting the book together and coming out with the book. And what I've really found very intriguing is, let me tell you, the generation that's really intrigued in legacy is the millennials. And here I thought, pretty much I've been working with people age 55 and up, but the millennials are very intrigued. They're really intrigued. How am I going to leave this world? Am I going to leave it with high impact? So, normally I think from a transitional perspective, when I deal with, business owners, normally when a gentleman or a lady starts moving into their 50s, they start thinking about, okay, the last 20, 25, 30 years, and that's probably more of a natural transition. But I have really been intrigued with the younger generation that they're really asking great questions about legacy. What is real legacy in my life? And I think people are starting to understand legacy is not just money. It can be a legacy of leadership. Mm-hmm. It can be a legacy of impact. There's a lot of things you can do with legacy.
That's great. So how does the entire family get involved? Like, do you bring everybody together for a meeting?
Yeah, actually what we've created is a 5-step process where we work with families. I'm basically, myself and some other individuals that we have set up just legacy coaching. And normally I'll start with mom and dad, and it'll be a couple of different meetings, and we go through. And really, the first thing I do with every family, is I have them deal with their heritage. And let me give you, this is really intriguing as we did the research on this, the difference between heritage and legacy. Heritage is your lineage right. It's everything that you should receive from your parents. Now, here's been my experience over the years, is very few people receive everything that they are due. Legacy is what we're going to leave. Now, legacy can also be both positive and negative. You can leave a very negative legacy to the next generation versus you can leave a very positive legacy to the next generation. So the first thing I have a mom and dad deal with, or a couple deal with, okay, what did I receive from my parents? And out of that, one thing I love to do is I love to talk about pruning the family tree. So let's say that Stacy or Bob, let me give you an example. Let's say that your dad had one of your dads had a big temper. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's something you don't want to carry into the next generation. Mm-hmm. So what you can say is, I'm going to have you identify those 3 or 4 characteristics or attributes you really don't want to carry forward. But at the same time, we're going to identify those 3 or 4 characteristics or attributes that you're from your parents and your family tree you do want to carry forward. And so we start with those meetings, and then we walk through some other steps. And then I start incorporating the children back into the planning with us. So that's normally how we actually define a legacy. For most families, size-wise, it might be, influential family. But at the same time, our steps and process works for, it's really not about the money, so it works for any size estate.
I'd never thought about including things that weren't, money or hard assets, like we're talking about things you do or don't want to carry forward from your parents' traits. It's a really neat way of looking at it.
Yeah, it really is. And Bob, I tell you that the things that I see more painful to the kids is the lack of the words, the lack of the encouragement, the lack of the affirmation, the lack of the blessing. And so something I just picked up a few years ago, I was doing the estate plans working with, the families anyhow. So I turned to the parents and said, have you ever put in writing why you're proud of your daughter or your son? And they looked at me and said, well, no, I've never done that. So I started encouraging them to attach letters of affirmation. And it could be that, son, I'm proud when you got your Eagle Scout, or, daughter, I'm proud that, the day you won the award, at your company, whatever it is. And I always try to get them to focus on 3, 4, or 5 special times in that child's life, put it in writing. Now, I've got some parents who will mail it directly to the kids then. I've got some parents who want to actually attach to the document, that they can read after death. But what's been interesting is I came up with this idea after I wrote my parents a letter of affirmation. So about 2001, 2002, I just realized, I'm going to do this to my parents. So I sent my parents a letter of affirmation affirming them of the things they've done in my life. Now, I'll tell you, one of my parents I struggled with. But what I did is I found 2 or 3 positive characteristics that I made sure I put in writing so that I could send that off. Well received, extremely well received. So it's just a little tool there that I see families can do, and it just really helps that next generation after mom and dad have passed away.
And it really clears the air of a lot of stuff before death, it seems like.
Yeah, it really does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Stacy, it really does. And like I said, how many times, I don't know if your family's like mine, I'm the youngest of 5, and, do I really want to go to Christmas with this crazy group every year?
Yeah, that's my family.
It really, if we sit here and we joke about it, and the reason, because it really goes back to when we were 5 and 6.
Yeah.
Daddy went to more of your football games than he went to my dances.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so it really does continue into the planning. And like I said, I've really become a psychiatrist, working with families and helping them unwind some of this dysfunction. But this is why I believe the legacy is so important. And here's the other cool thing that I believe about legacy. Legacy is not one generation. I can be so specific in who I am, what I believe in, my core values, my relationships, and all that. I think I can have impact 4, 5, 6 generations in the future. And that's powerful.
Wow.
It is.
That's very powerful. So can legacy planning affect charitable giving and engagement in a different way than estate planning?
It can, because part of what I love charitable giving, because we've done a lot of charitable trusts and foundations and stuff like that. So part of what you're trying to do, let me give you an example. One of the things I do in legacy planning is I've really helped the family define their core values. And normally it's about 6 to 8. So I've got a 13-year-old and a 12-year-old. My 13-year-old can actually sing the Hatcher family core values, which I think is funny. Mm-hmm. But see, what I'm trying to do in those core values, and one of those is giving. So what I'm trying to teach in these core values is who are we as a family? You bet that ties back into charitable giving. In other words, I let them know I believe we're a conduit to pass back into different charities that we believe and align with our belief system. So, I think it has tremendous impact. And here's the other fun part. I just had a grandparents I sat down with. They were probably about 70 and 68. Very, very wealthy family. And at that point in time, they didn't want to set up the foundation. I said, okay, we don't have to set up a formal foundation, but why don't we just do this? They had grandkids from like age 6 to 12. I think there was like 5 or 6 of them. I said, why don't we set up just a foundation on paper? You guys put in $10,000. Once a year, y'all sit down with all the grandkids. They sit on the board with you, and they help decide where that $10,000 goes to and which charity and why. Think about what we're educating the next generation or the second generation after that in giving. So, I think it's very powerful.
Hmm.
Wow, that's really cool.
It is.
That's like a really different way of thinking about things.
And what led you to...
It really isn't. Go ahead.
What led you to write the book?
I believe it was just God-given, to be honest with you, Bob, is I just kept seeing these patterns. Somebody said, Guy, you're so experienced, you need to write a book. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, and once again, my forte has always been estate planning. I said, I can do that in my sleep. I said, I really want to deal with the emotion behind it. And, Bob, that's really where I think the legacy came out of that. I just really, as I started doing more research on it, I actually started asking a lot of questions because I've had a lot of clients that, for 30 years, I've been their trustee. I've held their hand as they passed away. I'm into my 3rd generation with a lot of families. And so it was more of I feel led in to do it, but I just wanted a different take on it, and that's where I believe that where I've gone in to find legacy in 5 specific ways, one of them being the stuff, though.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's amazing stuff. What is your number one coolest success story you have from doing this?
I think the coolest thing is when you have a family that you start working with, and I do coaching also with business owners. Mm-hmm. So a lot of time we'll go in and help them, they're ready to transition into retirement. So whether we're working with the son or the daughter, if they're buying the company, or let's say that we have a management team that's buying a company, or even a third party, I think the coolest part is really working with that family helping the mom and dad to release, helping them to find that legacy is not the company, but legacy is much more, but also helping the son and the daughter understand their gifts to receive that properly to continue that company going forward. I've had that probably 4 or 5 times. I do want to share one other thing with you, though, speaking from a company perspective. So many business owners today, they believe that, their legacy is the company. And I really have to get in and help them unwind. That's really not the legacy. That's just an asset. And here's why they do that, because basically what they're doing is their identity is tied to what they do versus who they are. So what they're always trying to do, it seems like if they got a son or a daughter or some family member in the company, is they're trying to force that company down to that individual. Here's the first question I ask them. Does that individual have the gifts to run that company? And so that's why you lose so many in the second and third generation, because the kids aren't gifted. So what I love to do is say, okay, let's just think outside the box. If we sold that company and use that asset to go set up a second company, or something that child is passionate about and gifted for, what would that do for legacy? So, it's just a different way to look at it. So I would say in the company planning has been really kind of fun, because I've been able to wake up some families and understand a more direct vision and direction that they can take their future generation, even through what they do professionally.
Very interesting.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So the name of the book, in case anybody listening wants to go check it out, it is Your Future Reflection. Where could people find you and find your book?
Well, of course, our friendly friends at Amazon.com.
Okay.
They can go there. Also, you can go to my website, which is GuyHatcher.com. We continue to blog and have some more information in regards to legacy and planning there. And, I really appreciate, visiting with you guys about legacy this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more Get Real after these messages.